Good evening. I don't want to be cute. I don't want to be a wise guy. But today, February the 5th, 2025, already looks like the day when Donald J. Trump went too far, even for Donald J. Trump. A day of overreach. His cheery proposal to evict 2 million Palestinians from Gaza and turn it into an American-owned beautiful Riviera has been rejected by almost everyone. The Palestinians themselves, the Arab countries that Trump wanted to take them in, America's enemies, America's friends. These kind of rush of blood to the head, what a cracker of an idea, are what happens, can I politely suggest, when someone with complete power talks only to obsequious yes men. Truth is, Donald, not all the world's problems can be solved by a real estate deal. Let's just remind ourselves of what he actually said.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area.
Saudi Arabia said it would not re-establish relations with Israel without the creation of a Palestinian state, and that position was non-negotiable. Egypt says no. Jordan says no. Here in the UK, we've been wondering what it would take to get an explicit statement of disagreement with Donald Trump from Keir Starmer. And today, we found out. The British government, he said, remained completely committed to a two-state solution and Palestinians being allowed to return home and hadn't changed its mind. The Prime Minister told the Commons he had two images in his mind, one of the returned Israeli hostage, Emily Damari, and the second...
The second was the image of thousands of Palestinians literally walking through the rubble to try to find their homes and their communities in Gaza. They must be allowed home. They must be allowed to rebuild, and we should be with them in that rebuild on the way to a two-state solution.
As Britney Spears might say, oops, he did it again. Yes, Donald Trump, that's what we're going to be talking about again in the first hour of the programme. It's Iain Dale here with you until 7. You're listening to LBC. It's 5 minutes past 7. Why are we going to talk about Donald Trump? Because he is yet again dominating the headlines because he's proposed that America take over the Gaza Strip after the war ends and turn it into some sort of holiday resort. Now, I'm sure he has no ulterior motives there as a hotel owner. I'm sure that didn't come into his brain at all. I mean, it's one of those ideas where you think it is completely and utterly barking mad. And then you think, well, whatever you think of him, Donald Trump often is playing a bit of a game with people. But I'm trying to work out what this game is, because this idea is tantamount to ethnic cleansing. That's what a lot of his critics have said. And if you think, well, it would actually mean that 2 million people in Gaza would have to be displaced and taken somewhere else, he suggested Jordan and Egypt. Both of those countries have already said, no, they're not coming here, thank you very much. I don't know how else you can put it. And there are many people nowadays who, whatever Donald Trump says, they think it's brilliant and they defend it. And for the life of me, I can't think how you can do that.
It really feels like 2017 to me. Why do I say that? Well, because every single day you wake up as a British journalist and you think and you expect and you perhaps even dare to hope that you might be able to focus on something other than what was in Donald Trump's brain, which soon emerged from Donald Trump's brain at some point when you went to sleep overnight. But unfortunately, I think pretty much every day this week so far, from Monday to Wednesday, we have not been able to do anything but avoid that fate. Because Donald Trump has perhaps gone even better than what he'd said earlier in the week. He's gone better than allowing Elon Musk to take over various different bits of the American federal government apparatus. He's gone one better than suggesting that he would impose tariffs on his closest economic neighbours and restructuring the world economic order. He's decided to turn his attention to the Middle East. and a plan, a Trump doctrine, a Trump peace plan. And I thought I could do worse this morning by reading you the first few paragraphs of the New York Times reporting on what happened at that press conference with Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, overnight, because each paragraph becomes more shocking, more extraordinary, more remarkable than the last. Choose your superlative at will. President Trump, the New York Times writes, declared on Tuesday that the United States should seize control of Gaza and permanently displace the entire Palestinian population of the devastated enclave, one of the most brazen ideas that any American leader has advanced in years. Hosting Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel at the White House, Mr. Trump said that all 2 million Palestinians from Gaza should be moved to countries like Egypt and Jordan because of the devastation wrought by Israel's campaign against Hamas after the terrorist attack of October the 7th, 2023. While the president framed the matter as a humanitarian imperative and an economic development opportunity, he effectively reopened a geopolitical Pandora's box with far-reaching implications for the Middle East. Control over Gaza has been one of the major flashpoints of the Arab-Israeli conflict for decades, and the idea of relocating its Palestinian residents recalls an era where great Western powers redrew the maps of the region and moved around populations without regard to local autonomy. Pandora's box is, I think, exactly the opposite phrase.
Very good afternoon to you. This hour...
I don't want to be cute. I don't want to be a wise guy, but the Riviera of the Middle East, this could be something that could be so bad. This could be so magnificent.
I'm going to start by doing something you might not hear in other places when it comes to what Trump said last night. And I might be wrong to do this, so please feel free to have a go already. But I think this is worth a try. So I'm going to start this by thinking that Trump is actually serious and should be taken seriously on this issue. I'm not going to start by saying, oh, it's Trump, oh, he's crazy, oh, this won't work because Trump do and say Trump things, you know? Because in several regards, I think he's right. He is right to say Gaza is a hellhole. He is right to say it is a death trap there. He's right to say that those innocent people who live in that part of the world deserve to be able to live in a place that allows them to have a good life. He's right to say that the same solution has been attempted for decades and the Middle East is no closer to a two-state solution. He's right to say those things. But yes, I agree with you, he sounds like what he is, which is a real estate developer looking for a new project. And the thought of removing millions of people to a location they don't want to go to at a place as yet undisclosed isn't currently workable with anyone. We'll look at the legal bit in just a moment, but certainly the politics of this suggest that it is not possible. And yet I wonder about that too. So what I want to do first is just play you a couple of chunks of Trump's press conference to see what you think. This is the bit where he's asked about whether he would put US troops into Gaza.
As far as Gaza is concerned, we'll do what is necessary. If it's necessary, we'll do that. We're going to take over that piece, and we're going to develop it, create thousands and thousands of jobs, and it'll be something that the entire Middle East can be very proud of. But everybody feels that continuing the same process that's gone on forever, over and over again, and then it starts, and then the killing starts, and all of the other problems start, and you end up in the same place, and we don't want to see that happen. So by the United States, with its stability and strength, owning it, especially the strength that we're developing and developed over the last fairly short period of time, I would say really since the election, I think we'll be a keeper of something that is very, very strong, very powerful, and very, very good for the area, not just for Israel, for the entire Middle East. Very important. And we'll, again, have thousands of jobs, and there'll be jobs for everyone, not for a specific group of people, but for everybody.
Now, when I heard that this morning, if I'm really honest with you, I did think that if that offer were being made by a politician that isn't Trump, that's actually an incredible offer. Troops sent in to keep the peace, with billions of dollars spent to redevelop a hellhole and make it inhabitable and prosperous. The Marshall Plan for the Middle East. But it's Trump, and you have to wonder what his objective really is. So here's another part of that press conference about the objective.
I do see a long-term ownership position, and I see it bringing great stability to that part of the Middle East and maybe the entire Middle East. And everybody I've spoken to, this was not a decision made lightly. Everybody I've spoken to loves the idea of the United States owning that piece of land, developing and creating thousands of jobs with something that will be magnificent in a really magnificent area that nobody would know. Nobody can look because all they see is death and destruction and rubble and demolished buildings falling all over. It's just a terrible sight. I've studied it. I've studied this very closely over a lot of months, and I've seen it from every different angle, and it's a very, very dangerous place to be, and it's only going to get worse. And I think this is an idea that's gotten tremendous, and I'm talking about from the highest level of leadership, gotten tremendous praise. And if the United States can help to bring stability and peace in the Middle East, we'll do that. Bibi?
I mentioned again tonight our three goals, and the third goal is to make sure that Gaza never poses a threat to Israel again. President Trump is taking it to a much higher level. He sees a different future for that piece of land that has been the focus of so much terrorism, so many attacks against us, so many trials and so many tribulations. He has a different idea. And I think it's worth paying attention to this. We're talking about it. He's exploring it with his people, with his staff. I think it's something that could change history. And it's worthwhile really pursuing this avenue.
Now, Netanyahu would say that, wouldn't he? And Trump's claim that his plan is supported by the highest forms of leadership all over the world, that just isn't true insofar as the public statements of the Saudis go, the Jordanians, the Egyptians. But Trump suggests at the end of the press conference that Egypt and the Jordanians actually have a different view in private and will come round to taking Palestinians in. So he may well be lying about that. Palestinians, Trump also says, should be housed in the rebuilt Gaza. He was asked who will live there. He says people from all over the world, and I'm quoting now, and they'll live there, Palestinians also. Palestinians will live there. Many people will live there, but they've tried the other and they've tried it for decades and decades and decades. It's not going to work. It didn't work. It will never work. And you have to learn from history. History has, you just can't let it keep repeating itself, says Trump. On the legal side of this, I've heard a lot of people who are far cleverer than I am, know far more about it than I do, say the temporary forced removal of Palestinians from Gaza would be illegal, that it would be against the Geneva Conventions. So I just want to check this. Again, I'm not saying that this is right. I'm not saying therefore Trump should get what he wants. But if you look at what the Geneva Convention says about how an occupying force, which is what the law says Israel is in Gaza, Israel is an occupying force, it occupies Gaza. Article 49 of the Geneva Convention says something slightly different. It says individual or mass forcible transfers, as well as the deportations of protected persons from occupied territory to the territory of the occupying power or to that of any other country, occupied or not, are prohibited regardless of motive. That's clear. You can't do this. You cannot transfer people whose land you legally occupy out of that land either to yours or to somewhere else. Next paragraph. Nevertheless, this is the Geneva Conventions. Nevertheless, the occupying power may undertake total or partial evacuation of a given area if the security of the population or imperative military reasons so demand. Such evacuations may not involve the displacement of protected persons outside the bounds of the occupied territory, except when, for material reasons, it is impossible to avoid such displacement. Persons thus evacuated shall be transferred back to their homes as soon as hostilities in the area in question have ceased. The occupying power undertaking such transfers or evacuation shall ensure to the greatest practicable extent that proper accommodation is provided to receive the protected persons, that the removals are effected in satisfactory conditions of hygiene, health, safety and nutrition, and that members of the same family are not separated. That's actually in the Geneva Conventions. So what I think is happening here is that Trump, either genuinely or disingenuously, is going to try to show that Gaza is uninhabitable, that it is a war zone, and therefore the security of the population of Gaza demands the occupying power moves them for their own safety. And I just want to play you this. This is Trump later on in the Oval Office talking about the people in Gaza.
They have no alternative right now. I mean, they're there because they have no alternative. What do they have? It is a big pile of rubble right now. I mean, have you seen the pictures of it? Have you been there? It's terrible to live. Who can live like that? And very dangerous. There's shooting all over the place. There's bombing all over the place on both sides. Now, I would think if they had an option of moving to an area, either in a large group or various smaller groups, and take care of the close to 2 million people, I would think that they would be thrilled to do it. They have no, when you say about the Gaza Strip, they don't have an option.
Which is what I think he is trying to say to the Jordanians, the Egyptians, the Saudis, to offer them. At the moment, they're not doing it, so this plan isn't going nowhere, and he's shouting into the wind. But be honest. Try and put yourself in the position of a Gazan. If you were offered the chance to leave Gaza with your family and live in another Arab country, countries whose populations, by the way, take to the street in support of you, but whose leaders apparently aren't moved enough to take you in from a hellhole, if you were offered that chance, wouldn't you want to move? If it was temporary, and it has to be temporary, of course those people have to be able to live in what they call home. Of course they do. And that is a big if, right? It's Trump. So granted, that is a huge, massive if.